I'm the kind of guy who still misses browsing the physical aisles on a Friday night, and I have zero patience for movies that talk down to their audience. February is usually when the algorithm feeds you middle-of-the-road content, but they've actually hidden some visceral, blood-pumping masterpieces in their thriller section right now. We are talking about raw, meticulously crafted cinematic essays that usually get buried. I've vetted these to ensure they deliver harrowing tension and tour de force performances. Grab your notepad. These are 7 unforgettable triumphs of suspense. Number 1. Slow West, 2015. In this tightly wound, slow-burn masterpiece, a naive young Scottish teenager embarks on a treacherous journey across the unforgiving American frontier. Desperate and woefully unprepared for the visceral brutality of the 19th century wilderness, he hires a cynical, cigar-chomping bounty hunter for protection, portrayed with magnetic intensity by Michael Fassbender. Fassbender delivers a tour de force performance, imbuing the hardened killer with a dangerous ambiguity as the mismatched duo encounters a terrifying array of outlaws. The narrative expertly balances abrupt, shocking bursts of violence with profound character details, maintaining an escalating sense of dread. It is a brilliant subversion of traditional frontier morality tales, keeping the tension remarkably high, while exploring the tragic loss of innocence amidst the inherent savagery of the sweeping, untamed landscape. Directed by visionary filmmaker John M. McLean in his stunning feature debut, this inventive thriller serves as a brilliant throwback to classic westerns while entirely reinventing their stylistic boundaries. The film was actually shot amidst the rugged landscapes of New Zealand and Scotland, allowing the cinematographer to capture gorgeous, sweeping vistas that mirror the cinematic widescreen scope of Golden Age Hollywood epics. McLean's fastidious attention to detail earned the film the prestigious World Cinema Grand Jury Prize at the Sundance Film Festival, solidifying its historical significance. Furthermore, the picture is elevated by a hauntingly evocative acoustic score, perfectly underscoring the pioneer melancholy. Now, if the sweeping, dusty trails of the West aren't exactly what you're looking for, and you want a visceral thriller that brings revenge right into the gritty streets of modern Europe, my next pick is going to absolutely blow you away. Number 2. The Fury of a Patient Man, 2016. This harrowing Spanish-language neo-noir begins with a visceral, chaotic jewelry store heist, immediately plunging the viewer into a world of desperate violence before shifting its focus to a masterfully restrained puzzle box of vengeance. The narrative centers on a quiet, mild-mannered man who methodically integrates himself into the lives of the criminals responsible for his family's destruction years earlier, utilizing icy micro-expressions to convey a terrifying reservoir of suppressed rage beneath his unassuming exterior. The lead actor anchors the film with an absolute tour de force performance. As he systematically orchestrates his retribution, the plot's tension becomes practically suffocating, pulling the audience into an inescapable, morally ambiguous nightmare. It strips away all glamour to deliver a raw, grounded look at the corrosive, inescapable nature of vengeance. Helmed by Raul Arevalo in a phenomenally confident directorial debut, the production history of this unrelenting thriller is as gripping as its narrative, having taken years to finance. Arevalo completely bypasses the glossy aesthetics of modern cinema, utilizing grainy, intensely textured film to capture the gritty, sun-baked environments of working-class Spain. This aesthetic choice grants the picture an authentic, documentary-like immediacy and breathtaking cinematography. The film's historical significance within Spanish cinema cannot be overstated, as it absolutely dominated the Goya Awards, taking home 4 major prizes. Additionally, the sparse yet tension-fueled score functions as an invisible noose, sticking with that international flavor, but moving from a sun-baked street-level crime story to the suffocating, claustrophobic dread of a war-torn apartment. We have a masterpiece that uses history to build its terror. Number 3. Under the Shadow, 2016. Set against the terrifying backdrop of 1980s Tehran during the catastrophic height of the Iran-Iraq War, this deeply psychological thriller uses a historical setting to build an atmosphere of absolute, suffocating dread. The narrative follows a fiercely independent mother and her young daughter who become trapped in their apartment building while missiles rain down upon their city. The lead actress delivers a profound, tour de force performance as a woman battling both societal oppression and a sinister, unseen supernatural presence that begins to manifest inside their home. As the external horrors of wartime trauma violently intersect with claustrophobic dread, the terrifying line between reality and madness blurs. Relying on profound psychological tension rather than cheap jump scares, the visceral plot evokes a creeping, inescapable paranoia. Directed by visionary filmmaker Babak Anvari in his astonishing feature debut, The production history reflects the complexities of international cinema, as the film was actually shot in Jordan to meticulously recreate war-torn Tehran. The acclaimed cinematography utilizes exceptionally tight framing and oppressive camera movements to evoke a visceral sense of inescapable entrapment, reminiscent of classic World War II bunker dramas. The film achieved massive historical significance by winning a British Academy of Film and Television Arts Award for Outstanding Debut, while also serving as the United Kingdom's official submission for the Academy Awards. The nerve-shredding score relies heavily on industrial dissonance, elevating the supernatural terror. Now, if you want a thriller that takes that kind of creeping paranoia but injects it with a delightfully dark, offbeat sense of humor, you absolutely need to check out my next pick. Number 4. I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore, 2017. When a severely depressed nursing assistant returns home to find she has been burgled, the local authorities' absolute refusal to help pushes her past the breaking point. This delightfully dark and quirky crime thriller follows her as she teams up with her eccentric, martial arts-obsessed neighbor to track down the thieves themselves. Both leads deliver absolute tour de force performances, brilliantly capturing beleaguered exhaustion and sudden righteous indignation while injecting bizarre, socially awkward humor into the escalating madness. Their amateur investigation rapidly spirals out of control, violently dragging the ordinary duo deep into a violently absurd criminal underworld they are completely unprepared for. The taut, visceral narrative perfectly captures the unpredictable spirit of pulp crime cinema, delivering pitch-black humor alongside sudden, shocking stakes and unyielding tension. Written and directed by Macon Blair in his stunning directorial debut, this deeply eccentric production continues the gritty, low-budget aesthetic he previously explored as an actor in acclaimed independent thrillers. The film achieved monumental historical significance within the independent circuit when it captured the prestigious Grand Jury Prize at the Sundance Film Festival. Visually, the stark cinematography imbues the grim suburban landscapes with a bleak, washed-out palette that perfectly mirrors the protagonist's profound existential despair. Additionally, the film is propelled by a remarkably dynamic and percussive score, which masterfully balances slapstick comedy with moments of harrowing suspense. Speaking of ordinary people making terrible, life-altering decisions, we are shifting gears to a bleak, historical period piece up next that will crawl right under your skin and stay there. Number 5. 192, Twat 2017. Set in the harsh, unforgiving agricultural landscape of Nebraska in the 1920s, this bleak, period-accurate psychological thriller begins with a horrific domestic betrayal. The narrative follows a proud, deeply flawed farmer who manipulates his teenage son into helping him brutally murder his wife to prevent her from selling her inherited land. The lead actor delivers a mesmerizing tour de force performance, adopting a gruff, marble-mouthed dialect to mask a terrifying lack of conscience. However, what follows the murder is a visceral Shakespearean descent into madness and moral rot, as the terrifying consequences of their terrible crimes slowly manifest. The inescapable weight of guilt serves as the ultimate antagonist, maintaining an excruciatingly slow burn that crafts a harrowing, suspenseful portrait of a doomed, deeply fractured family. Masterfully adapted and directed by Zach Hilditch from a celebrated Stephen King novella, the production history of this picture represents one of the most successful cinematic translations of King's literary works. The film feels incredibly akin to a vintage, brooding film noir, largely thanks to the breathtaking, meticulously crafted cinematography. The visual approach utilizes vast, isolating wide shots and suffocating shadows to transform the sweeping American heartland into a claustrophobic, inescapable purgatory. The film's historical significance lies in its brilliant deconstruction of the agrarian dream, exposing the violent patriarchal entitlement lurking beneath early 20th century homesteading. The dissonant score amplifies the creeping psychological dread. But if you appreciate a film that takes profound human trauma and uses it to completely reinvent a familiar cinematic premise, you have got to check out how my next pick handles the haunted house formula. Number 6. His House, 2020. This incredibly smart, socially conscious thriller completely reinvents the traditional haunted house formula by rooting its visceral terror in the agonizing reality of the modern refugee experience. The narrative focuses on a young couple who barely escaped the unimaginable horrors of war in South Sudan, only to be placed in a dilapidated, terrifyingly oppressive public housing estate in England. The lead actors deliver emotionally heartbreaking, absolute tour de force performances as individuals fundamentally broken by grief and unimaginable loss. They soon realize that the sinister, insidious evil they fought so hard to flee has seemingly followed them across the ocean, taking root in the decaying walls of their new home. The tension escalates with terrifying precision, oscillating between genuine supernatural dread and the very real horrors of xenophobia. Directed by Remy Weeks in a staggering, flawless feature debut, this harrowing production required a deeply sensitive approach to authentically portray the profound trauma of displacement. The film earned massive historical significance by rightfully claiming a British Academy of Film and Television Arts Award for Outstanding Debut, signaling a massive triumph for socially driven horror cinema. The brilliant cinematography crafts an atmosphere of pure, suffocating dread, utilizing sickly, institutional lighting, and impossible, shifting geographies within the cramped flat to visually manifest the protagonist's profound psychological unraveling. The tension is further intensified by an incredibly unsettling, sorrowful score, which beautifully merges traditional orchestral horror motifs with haunting instrumentation. And finally, moving from the inescapable ghosts of the past to a deeply nostalgic, stylized nightmare about how quickly youth can be shattered, we round out the list in the mid-90s. Number 7. Super Dark Times, 2017. Set in the hazy, nostalgic mid-90s, this haunting, intensely atmospheric thriller meticulously explores the sudden, violent corruption of small-town innocence. The visceral story follows two inseparable teenage best friends whose lives are permanently shattered after a horrific accidental tragedy occurs in the snow-draped woods. The young cast delivers absolute tour de force performances, perfectly capturing the awkward vulnerability of adolescence colliding with unimaginable trauma and profound guilt. As the boys desperately attempt to cover up the incident, the crushing weight of their shared secret breeds deep, festering paranoia, leading to a suspenseful and intensely psychological unraveling. The narrative tension masterfully builds not from external threats, but from the terrifying deterioration of their bond, proving that the most frightening monsters are often ordinary people pushed past their breaking point. Directed by Kevin Phillips in a remarkably assured feature debut, this film's production history is deeply rooted in the evocative, sensory details of Generation X youth culture. It avoids cheap nostalgia, instead utilizing its period setting to isolate its characters in an era before digital connectivity, significantly amplifying the suffocating dread. The visual language and stunning cinematography are simply breathtaking, framing the dreary, overcast suburban landscape as a cold, indifferent wasteland. The camera utilizes slow, deliberate zooms that trap the characters in their own mounting guilt. Complementing this visual mastery is an incredibly chilling ambient score, whose droning, metallic soundscapes mimic the inescapable ringing of trauma in the ears. As a piece of cinematic history, it stands as a pivotal, masterful evolution of the coming-of-age genre, leaving audiences completely breathless. In an era dominated by predictable franchise blockbusters, these 7 hidden gems prove that the most visceral, memorable cinematic experiences often reside on the fringes of the mainstream. From the dusty, blood-soaked trails of the American West to the claustrophobic corridors of English public housing, these masterpieces utilize the thriller genre not merely for cheap shocks, but as a profound vehicle to explore the darkest recesses of the human condition. They are harrowing, masterfully constructed tours de force that demand to be witnessed.